Okay. Good morning. Oh, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to another session from Lifting Stripes Initiative, LSI. And today I have two amazing speakers here that have decided to spend their mid-afternoon with us. I just told them how grateful I am. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Today we will be talking about an overview of the law school system in Canada and the UK. And both of our speakers have diverse kind of background when it comes to, they're both lawyers, they're both graduate of law schools, but both of them have different pathways in getting to that, being a lawyer. So they will be sharing with us today their experiences, the process. And please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask us. I'm excited today because I know some of you know, and some of you might not. I'm a lawyer myself, qualified to practice in Nigeria and in Ontario, Canada. So when I see my learned colleagues in the house, I'm always so excited and happy. So thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. And I would ask that you please introduce yourself to us. And I will start with Opeyemi.
All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. My name is Opeyemi. I'm 24. I recently graduated in July of this year from University of Leicester Law School, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you so much for coming. And Tayo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ataya. I have to clarify, I'm an articling student. I've passed the bar to the glory of God. I'm articling, but I'm not a lawyer yet. I will be in June, but to the glory of God. So yes, I graduated. I got my JD from Osgoode Hall Law School, and I'm also very excited to be here today and speak with you all.
Thank you so much. Nice to have both of you here with us. So yeah, we have chatted a couple of times about the process, how it is and how it was, getting qualified. Well, not qualified yet, but going through the law school process. And that is what I want you guys to come share with us today. Like I said earlier, both of you graduated from law school, but from different universities, from different jurisdiction. So you have different experiences and you went through different processes. So we will start with Eitade. Can you run through your process with us?
Absolutely. So like most people, I grew up here. So I went through high school here and all of that. Then I did my undergrad at McGill, and maybe we can talk about that later. I know a lot of people have questions about what undergrad to do, but I did a degree in honors history and I minored in international development and communications. Then immediately after McGill, I went to Osgoode Hall Law School to do my JD. And then in my first year, 1L is what we call it in Canada, 1L, 2L, 3L. In the summer of my first year, I was lucky enough to get a position at McCarthy Tate Rowe. So I summered there in my 1L, 2L, and now I'm articling at the firm. So that's high level, my academic journey to get here.
Okay, so thank you for taking us through that in a very concise and summary. So, I wanted you to kind of give us kind of a broader understanding of the process itself. Okay. So you went to high school here and then you applied to various schools, obviously, and got into McGill. But at that point, did you know that you were going to become, you were going to pursue the law area?
Absolutely. I think there's a picture of me when I was like 6 years old, dressed up as a judge for career day back in Nigeria. So I've known for a long time that this is what I wanted to do. And one thing I always say about undergrad, some people think, oh, you have to do one of those law undergrads in order to get to law school. My recommendation is to do whatever undergrad is going to get you the highest GPA. And that's something that I wish I kept in mind. Obviously, I did well at McGill, to the glory of God, and it worked out fine. But I think at the beginning I was worried, like, oh, I should pick something law related. Like, no, I have colleagues who studied geology, who studied music, who studied all sorts of things. It's really about the GPA. So yeah, I did apply to a couple of schools. I applied to a couple of schools in Ontario. At McGill, I ultimately chose McGill because I thought they had a very good history program. And I'm actually still involved in the Osgoode Society for Canadian Legal History here in Ontario, which is a group of like judges, academics, lawyers who study legal history and how it informs our precedents today. So I thought that was a really good introduction to that. I think history is very important in the way that we interpret and analyze the law. So I thought that would be a very good sort of introduction. And also I wanted to learn French, which unfortunately I didn't do at McGill. So I wasn't focused enough on that aspect of things, but I thought going to another province would be a good way to like learn another language, get familiar with another culture, learn a different side. So yeah, that's what I ultimately did. And then in my third year at McGill, I decided to go ahead and apply to law school. I took the LSAT, got my personal statements together. I applied to Queen's, Western, Ottawa, U of T, Osgoode, UBC. I think that's it. I applied to most of the ones in Ontario and one of them in British Columbia. I did not apply to McGill Law because they have a different legal system and their law degree is slightly longer. And I knew that I wanted to practice in Ontario, so I didn't think there was a point. So I did the LSAT. There's a lot of groups that support it. So Black Future Lawyers is a great resource. BALSUB, the Black Law Students Association, is a great resource for like tips on how to take the LSAT. They have a study bank. I found all of the things I used to study for online for free because I was not prepared to spend a lot of money on this. I did the practice exams. I found all of those online for free. And then I started my applications. And luckily I got into all of them except for U of T, unfortunately. But I ended up choosing to go to Osgoode out of the ones I was accepted to because of the experiential learning. And I think we can talk about that later on. I'm trying to give you as broad as possible, but I ended up choosing to go to Osgoode. And it was a great decision. I did a legal clinic while I was there. It's the Human Rights Legal Support Center, which is a great resource. It's kind of like pro bono counsel for applicants at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. So in my second year, I was assisting clients with mediations. I was representing them in settlement negotiations. I was drafting arguments for their applications at the Human Rights Tribunal. And I was working closely with legal counsel on that. So it was a good way to get practical experience. And that side of things, the administrative law side of things, with my commercial practice at McCarthy Tétrault. So high level, that's how I got to where I am now. I hope that was more detailed.
Thank you. Yes. Before I let you go on this question, I would go back to ask you about the LSAT. So tell us, what is LSAT? Is it mandatory that you have to go through that process, write the exams, pass the exams? What normally is the grading like? You've shared, part of how you got your resources to study and all that. So tell us more about the LSAT process. And like I said, is it compulsory? Is it mandatory? And I heard you say you wrote yours at your third year. Can you write earlier? Can you write later? Yeah, just tell about the process.
Absolutely. So the one caveat that I would give is this process changes so quickly. And even though I feel young, I also feel old, because when people talk about it now, they're like, there's certain sections of it that they're thinking of removing. So I'll obviously talk about my experience with the major caveat that you should check for the website of every law school to see what the requirements are now. So when I wrote it, it was required for every law school I applied to. I think McGill does not require it, if I'm remembering correctly, but otherwise it was required. There's multiple sessions when you can write it. So I recall there's one in like June, August, January, November, and there's a cutoff deadline for the law schools that you're applying to. So when I was applying, you had to write by January in order to get your applications on time as the latest date. I always recommend people write as early as possible. So for me, in my second year, which I regret not doing, it was COVID. So I was doing different things like volunteering in my community, but I didn't really have a job at that point. And I wish that I just used that downtime to like just study for it. If you're in your first year, you don't have an internship, nothing stops you from starting the process. I don't think it's too early, because it's not a test, like unlike the MCAT, it's not a test of knowledge. They're not quizzing you on legal doctrine or anything like that. There's 3 sections. There's reading comprehension, there's logical reasoning, and there's logic games, which I think they're thinking about removing. But reading comprehension is exactly what it sounds like. You get an article, you answer multiple choice questions about it. Logical reasoning is sort of like philosophy, kind of the same reasoning skills, where it's like, if A is B, then what is C? and they give you sort of statements and you have to answer questions about them that basically show your analytical and critical thinking skills. And then logic games is what I describe as like the math section of the LSAT, where they give you like weird numbers, like there's 5 ducks who are swimming in a pond. One of them does this. And then it's not really math because there's no calculation, but it's like logical reasoning. And I guess those are the skills that you need to succeed in law school, which is why they structure it that way. So I practiced. The number one tip I always have is to use practice exams. A lot of people do like courses. That personally is not my style. I really liked this website called 7Sage, which breaks down the practice questions by topic. And it's sort of a repetition thing. So if you look across every single year of the LSAT, the questions might not repeat, but the structure of the questions repeat. So if you can do like the entire universe of practice questions, it really prepares you for when you actually do the exam. So that's the best way that I recommend to study. Get practice exams, practice questions, and just do them over and over and over again. Check your answers, understand why you're doing things wrong. So yeah, that's ultimately how I prepared. I wrote the November one, I think. I know I wrote it twice. I wrote it one in November, didn't like my score. So then I wrote it again. So yeah, that's how I prepared.
Okay, thank you. Before I let you go on that, because as you explained, other things just come up. So
absolutely.
Are you allowed, obviously you just said you wrote it twice. Is there a grading kind of style? And how many times are you allowed to rewrite it if, is allowed?
That's a good question. I think you're allowed to rewrite it as much as you want. I'm happy for someone else to correct me on that. Your score is valid for 5 years. So like I said, honestly, I think you could probably, this is not advice, but I think you could probably even write this in high school. It's not hard intellectually, but there's lots of people who just go online, go on Khan Academy and just take a free practice exam and see how you do, and to just see what the questions are like, because they're not at all testing substantive knowledge. And then the scoring. So it's graded on a scale from when I applied. I think the highest score that you can get is 180. And what I'm hearing through the grapevine is that every year the scores are getting higher and higher and higher that you need to get into law school. So every law school on their website, they are going to post a benchmark of what is the minimum, what is not necessarily the minimum, but what's the median score of students who are accepted into their program. And for every law school, it's different. The more competitive the law school is, the higher that median will tend to be. I will say when I applied, they ranged between 155 to 165. But what I'm hearing is now it's even higher, keeping in mind that the highest score is 180. So your goal is to get the best score possible. And actually, when you do a complete practice exam, this is why I say to start earlier, because if you want to write in November, and let's say by September, you're still a 140 and your goal is a 160, you might want to keep that in mind in terms of when you start writing. So yeah, that's it. And admissions here, they're leaning towards a more holistic process. So it's not just your LSAT score. My LSAT score was decent. I think I was like a 160. It wasn't a 180. It wasn't a 170, but I had a really high GPA. So they're called splinter students. So you can balance your application out. Maybe your GPA is higher, maybe your LSAT is lower. Maybe your LSAT is higher, your GPA is lower. I know someone who had a lower GPA, but they got a 175 on the LSAT. So that really boosted their application. And of course, extracurriculars, but as much as you can control your grades and your LSAT, I would really focus on those things. And then of course, your extracurricular portfolio is going to play into it as well.
Thank you so much, Tayo. That was very robust.
You asked me to go broad.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you. Because, it kind of gives us, even though I didn't school in Canada, now I have kind of a vivid understanding of, what the process is. And I would come back to you with the JD and the law degree. So we'll talk about that later. Oh, Payemi, hey, hello. I know you schooled in the UK. So tell us, what was the process like from iSchool?
All right. So I would say a lot of similarities to what Tayo just explained. To break it down, similarly, I went to school in Ontario for high school. In grade 12, you apply to all your universities for undergrad. So I applied to a bunch. I only applied in Ontario for undergrad. I ended up going to Western. That was my number one choice. I loved it. Take me back. In my undergrad, I studied political science because I always kind of had a passion for politics, civics in high school, etc. And again, I really loved political science. I miss it every day. I did a minor in sociology, which I also really enjoyed in my undergrad. Um, in my, I believe, third year of undergrad, I was getting ready for applying to, I was sort of on the fence actually about either doing a master's in political science just because I was so passionate and I really enjoyed it, or doing law school. Um, I obviously kind of chose law school, and I chose to focus my applications on the UK for a few reasons. I'd say my reasons stem from a more personal background to me, but that's not to say that I wouldn't encourage people to apply to the UK if they wanted to and if they feel like it's something they would enjoy. So, my primary reasoning, I'd say, for going to the UK is because I was born in England. I have a lot of family there. I never did any type of study abroad or anything like that in my undergrad. And I always wish that I did. So it was kind of a combination of going back to my like birthplace and being closer to a lot of friends and family in England. And then also getting this experience of schooling abroad and schooling in a different place, and also achieving my dream and goal of going to law school. So with all this in mind, I applied to two Canadian law schools just because, of course, I think we can talk about this later, but there are a lot of benefits to going to law school in the country that you want to practice and live in. But of course, that's not to say that you can't go abroad. So I applied to TMU and Ottawa. And for England, I focused my applications. I applied to five schools. I applied to University of Leicester, which is where I ended up going, Queen Mary, University of York, Warwick, and the last one is escaping me. I don't know why I can't remember, but I applied to five. I was really happy it was with my applications. I feel like it was a lot of work, which is across the board the standard for law school applications, but I felt very happy with kind of what I had produced. Um, I ended up choosing University of Leicester, particularly because I actually was able to get a scholarship, and that kind of just guided my decision to go there. They do also promote that they have some Canadian law courses to make it a little bit easier, quote unquote, to transfer back to the Canadian legal system. But I ended up choosing Leicester. I was really happy with my decision. I think, like I said, across the board, the process of applying is very tasking. So the way that I went about it, because I was in the end still applying to some Canadian law schools, I also did the LSAT. I did it twice. I do feel like because I had five applications for the UK versus two for Canada, my focus was more on the UK, which wasn't a problem, but I think I think finding a good number of applications is a little tidbit of advice I would give. Don't feel like you need to, like, I feel like me and Tayo kind of applied to what I would presume is an average amount of schools. I don't want people to feel like they need to apply to like so many. And the only reason I say that is because it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. Don't overexert yourself when you need to kind of focus on your grades in your current undergrad. You need to focus on making sure that all of those applications individually are strong and good to give you the best chance. So there's nothing wrong with applying to a lot of schools. Apply to however many you feel comfortable with, but just don't feel like you need to apply to 20. You can, like, as long as Tayo said, as long as you focus on your GPA, you have standard or grade extracurriculars. And if you're going to Canada, you have a good LSAT, or if you're going to the UK, you, like I said, have a good GPA and good extracurriculars, you'll be fine. So kept the applications pretty tame. And I feel as though I would say the process is, even though it's time consuming writing those applications, it's not terrible. It's nothing that none of us, or none of you, sorry, can't do. You made it through high school, you made it through undergrad. You can certainly put in a lot of concentrated effort into your post-secondary, your post-undergrad education. So I think my biggest tip for the applications, no matter which school you go to, just put a lot of effort and time into them. And something that I would actually suggest is, if you don't get in your first round, something that I did, because I would have wanted to either go to TMU or go to England. And when I didn't get into TMU, I actually emailed the admissions and I kind of asked for any feedback on my application and just any tips, even though I knew that I wasn't going to apply again and I had already gotten into another school. I just wanted to learn how to better set up myself in the future for applications or job applications or anything. So something I'd suggest is, if you don't get in on your first try, it's not the end of the world. There's so many people older than me. I'm 24, and people that have kind of a more robust life experience because they didn't go to law school right after undergrad. They were able to do a master's or they were able to work. So I really want to demystify or destigmatize this idea that it's not okay to take a break in between or not go to law school right after your undergrad. I think it's very common, more common than people know. And I'd say if you have to take some time to just work on your applications and reapply the following September or whenever, don't let it get you down. It's so common. Part of me almost wishes that I took a break, because I think me and Ayataya said I think we're the same in this. I did high school, undergrad, law school, no break. And that's fine as well. That's completely fine. But I just want everyone to know it's actually, it's common to do things other than doing it that way. It's so common to take breaks in between any period of your application process. And to echo what Ayataya was saying, I also would suggest, if you want to apply to Canada, start earlier. I personally feel like I wish I started earlier. That's something I definitely would have changed, particularly just for LSAT prep. I think that was such a great piece of advice, suggesting to even start in high school, because like Ayataya said, there's no harm in starting earlier. It's not like she said, again, I'm just copying everything she said, but it's not an exam of knowledge. It's critical thinking and logical reasoning. So it's like a machine that you're fine tuning and you're just working on. Even though I said I wish I started earlier, the one thing I did to prep in high school was, there was this app, and you could just search it up on the App Store, like LSAT prep. And in my free time, I would just randomly answer questions and see the feedback. So anything like that, just put in incremental effort as soon as you can, as soon as you know, I'd say start prepping for the LSAT. And if not the LSAT, start thinking about what schools in the UK or wherever, whatever country you want to go to. Just think as early as you can. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself, but start earlier. You're going to be better off for it. And honestly, try not to overexert yourself through the application process. That's my best advice. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. It's exciting to put in work to something and then see the acceptances and see the accolades and see the ability to change your life and go a different direction from what you have already done. So I think everybody, you know that you can do this. If you're here, or if you're listening and you want to do this, you can do it. Just put in the effort and the time.
Thank you so much. And that will take me to my next question. And the question is, I know that there's a couple of steps that you need to go through before you become a lawyer. And in our terms, we say before you're called to the bar, right? And when you're called to the bar, you are then, I call that lawyer, barrister, and solicitor title, right? So after law school, so both of you are done with law school right now, and you've taken us through the part of how you got to law school, what you needed to do. So what are the other steps that you would need to go through to be called to bar? And I will start with Ayataya. And
Yeah,
I'm talking about, sorry, I needed to just quickly clarify. Now I'm talking about schooling in Canada and in the UK, but vice versa. So, yeah.
okay. So for the JD program in that stream, I believe there's also a way to do it when you're doing like an LLM and all of those things, but I'll focus on the JD stream. You complete your JD, then you have to write what's called the bar exam. There's different dates to write it. Most people who have an articling position that starts in August, you want to write it over the summer because articling is just way too hectic to study for the bar exam. So you write the bar exam. I wrote mine in June. There's a barrister exam, which is more litigation focused, more advocacy focused. And there's a solicitor exam, which is real estate, business law, estate planning. And then both exams cover areas of professional responsibility and ethics. So you get a giant like box of materials. It's an open book exam. I think they're actually thinking about reviewing the process because, and maybe there's like another session on this, but studying for the bar exam is like, that is substantive. It requires substantive knowledge, but you have 4 hours to answer 170 questions and it's open book. So then it just becomes a thing of search and finding the answer in the books. And I did learn things along the way, absolutely, but like it just solidified what I learned in law school. So it's very similar to the LSAT in the way that I practice with a lot of practice exams. Read through the materials. I was doing practice exams every single day, multiple sometimes a day, learning why you got it wrong, because again, they ask similar themes and similar questions. So yeah, those resources, you have to buy some of your practice exams, and the materials themselves, you have to pay to write the exam. Luckily, if you're articling at a big firm or a larger firm, which I am, they will pay for the whole thing. The whole thing, like that's one thing I think a lot of people are not prepared for. Like it costs upwards of $5,000 because you have to pay for the materials, pay to write the exam, which is crazy. And they throw away your materials at the end. So you can't even use it. It's a whole ordeal. Like you go to this convention center, they search you, there's police officers, there's ambulances outside in case someone faints or something. They search every page of your materials. You have to bring everything in a Ziploc bag. It's a whole thing. But anyways, when you finish that, to the glory of God, I passed both. Then you article. Articling is 10 months. I believe there's another way that TMU does it, which is like a placement thing that you do in between your years. So there's different routes. I'm articling, like I said, I'm a Carly Teach Rome. There's like different requirements for articling. Like there's certain skills you're supposed to learn. You're supposed to have a principal who's like your mentor. It's like an apprenticeship model. And then once you complete articling successfully, you've completed all the components and then you're called to the bar.
So what is articling?
Articling is like what I would describe as an apprenticeship, where it also depends on how you do it. When you're articling at a smaller firm, it's more of a one-on-one relationship where you're working with one person and they're giving you work. You're learning how to be a lawyer. In my situation, I'm articling at a bigger firm. I have multiple rotations. I know I want to be a litigator, so my main rotation is in litigation. I have a main principal who is a partner at the law firm, and she's my mentor. We check in every 3 weeks. But I'm assigned tasks. So I was on a Supreme Court hearing. I got to draft the factum, respond to the interveners, learn how to file things. I have a trial in January, so I'm preparing for that. On Monday, I'm going to Osgoode Hall to argue, to help assist with arguing a certification motion. So I'm basically just supporting the lawyers. I do research memos, draft arguments, draft and compile motion records, compendiums, draft affidavits, commission affidavits. So it's like an apprenticeship. You're working very closely with different lawyers and you're learning how to do the job. And it's a great experience. Like this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. So I feel very grateful and excited about the work that I'm doing. It's obviously extremely intense. You're at the bottom of the food chain at the firm. So all of the grunt work and the unglamorous tasks go to you. And there's also a component of getting hired back. So I'm in a little bit of a unique situation. After articling, I was lucky enough to get a position at the Court of Appeal. I'm going to clerk at the Court of Appeal. And then hopefully I will also apply to clerk at the Supreme Court. So yeah, like I'm not necessarily in the same position about worrying about getting hired back. But folks who are, as a student, you're sort of on trial. Like they're trying to see, are you a good fit at the firm? And if you are good enough, quote unquote, if you attention to detail, you do things in a timely manner, you're responsive, then you get hired back as a full-time associate. So yeah, that's a little bit about what articling is like.
Thank you so much for explaining that, because someone have asked me, what is articling, right? And this person that asked me actually did attend university here in Canada. So that was why I asked you, because I wanted you to kind of explain what it was. And on a lighter note, when you were just talking about writing your bar and having the paramedics and all that, I just had a flashback. I just had a flashback. I'm like, oh my God, she just reminded me.
You'll never forget it. It's an unforgettable experience.
And I was telling Okoyemi that, we did it while we were a little bit older, right? Would practice for a couple of years back home. And now you're having this huge bundle of pieces of paper, tiny prints thrown at you, and you're wondering, okay, where do I start from? Like, how is this going to be possible, right? So thank you for sharing your experience with us. Okoyemi, tell us, I know you just graduated. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us, what's the process in you being qualified to practice here in Canada as a lawyer?
Okay, easy. Really quick, I just wanted to say congratulations, Aitayo, for the clerkship. I'm not trying to brag for her, but getting a clerkship role is so competitive. I was looking on the website, like just for fun, just doing research, and I can't remember the number, but they take so little people. So that's such an achievement. I'm so proud of you. Like, even though you're my, like, you're my like mentor almost, but that's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the process is, I'd say it's a little bit different. So picture this, you just graduated in July of 2025, like me. The next thing that you are going to be focusing on for the next few months, let's say minimum 5 to 6 months, is the NCAs. The NCAA stands for the National Accreditation Association. And think of it as, because you did a standard 2-year law degree in England or in another country, if it's a 2-year law degree or it's done in another country, you're going to have to now take roughly a year to kind of almost match that 3rd year that Canadian law students would be doing to qualify and prove that you're qualified to practice law in Canada. So before articling, before writing the bar, your focus after graduating from a foreign law school is going to be the NCAs. So you're going to submit your transcript, you're going to submit you have to submit a resume. It's a very basic application. It doesn't take too long. You do it before you graduate just because your university or my university actually automatically sends my transcript the day, like a week after I graduate, to the NCAs. So just make sure to get the application for your NCA profile out of the way before you graduate. It keeps things moving smoothly. They're going to give you a report after, let's say, a month or two. You apply. In about 2 months, they're going to give you a report that explains how many exams you need to take. And recently, they added a legal research and writing course. So for 2-year law degrees, the minimum exams you're going to take is 7. That's kind of the standard, and it was written on my report. So 7 exams and then also a course. So currently, I'm completing 8 different qualifications so that I can practice law. The exams are pretty, they're basic concepts and courses that you're going to do in law school anyway. It's just the Canadian version. So you're going to be learning about Canadian case law. The course that I mentioned is a legal writing course. So you're learning how to research and use Canadian databases and how to really write like a lawyer, because there are a few minute differences in the writing systems and in the process of formulating documents and kind of applicable Canadian law firm work than the UK or whatever country you did law in. Every country is going to be different. Even the provinces are different. So you're going to do that course. The course is roughly 2 months. I'm doing it right now. It's really not too bad. It's just, think of it like English, like an English course that you would take, except it's law. So it's like law English, and you're kind of learning again how to write a memo, how to do a research project. So that's one thing that you're going to do. And then back to the exams, you're going to get your report. You're going to see how many exams you have to do. Everybody has to do the core main 5. So the minimum amount of exams you can do is 5. And they are Canadian foundations of Canadian law, criminal law, Canadian constitutional law, Canadian administrative law, and Canadian criminal law. Those are the 5 core ones that everyone who is foreignly trained or studied in a different country is going to have to take no matter what. And then because I have to do 7, I was given the choice to do 2 additional free choice exams. So I get to choose. I am planning on doing commercial law and I believe business organizations. So it's up to you. You can choose whatever you want. You can choose based on what interested you or what sounds interesting to you. I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of choosing those 2 because they're offered earlier, and I have no desire to prolong this process any longer than it needs to be. So hoping to finish in February. So now speaking more hypothetically, let's say that when I finish in February, I get my CQ, which is a certificate of qualification from the NCA, which shows, okay, this person went to school in a different country, but now they've gone through the process to qualify to practice in Canada. After getting that CQ, which I believe will take, let's say, a month, I would be able to now apply for articling positions. And my desire or goal is to start prepping for the bar. So one note about the articling cycle is because I graduated in July and articling applications close in July. I believe they closed July 21st. The time was very short. And because I wasn't in a place to apply because I didn't have my NCA report, nor had I finished any of the NCA exams. The minimum amount of time that you can apply for articling when you're a foreign trained lawyer is when you're within 6 months of completing your last exam. So even though that could have been true at that time, I don't think it was, but it could have maybe been true for someone else if they did 3 exams a month. For me, I wasn't in a place where it made sense to rush and apply if I hadn't even really graduated or gotten my diploma yet. So I will be applying for the 2027 cycle, but those applications will open 2026 July. I found figuring that out to be a little bit confusing. And the reason for that is the LSO, which is the Law Society of Ontario, the website explains what I just said, but I didn't really find it to be very clear. I found that I had to do a lot of digging and I had to ask a lot of people the same question, particularly people that are studying law practicing law right now. I had to ask around a lot because I just wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. So I hope that was clear. You kind of have to I don't want to say that you have to. In my case, it made the most sense because I knew that I didn't want to overexert myself or rush the process. It made sense to just wait, apply next year, start articling next year. And in the meantime, like I said, prep for the bar. So because I'm kind of in the middle of that first stage, the NCAs that I mentioned, I've now completed 1 exam and I'm studying for 2 exams that I'm going to be taking in November. There's no exams offered in December, so it's kind of nice. You kind of get December off. You still have to study, but at least there's no exams. And then, like I said, I'll take 2 in January and then 2 in February, and I'll be done. So the process, I would describe it really quick. It's not anything otherworldly. I think once you've graduated law school, it's not going to be anything that you won't be able to understand. Think of the NCA exams as one of your courses in law school condensed into a self-study, self-paced exam, and you can take as many or as little as you want per month. I know I've spoken to a lot of people. So many people do a different kind of combination of timing for the NTA exams. Like I said, I did one to start, and then every month after, I'm doing two, and then I'm also doing the course this month. But I know some people who are taking one at a time, so it'll take maybe 7 months or however many exams they have. I know people who are doing three at a time, so it's going to be a lot faster. It's really up to you, and you have to just be honest and serious with yourself. Do you have the time, the money, because these exams are expensive? They're each $565. So, do you have the time, money, and capacity to study for more or less exams? It's up to you. You have to follow your personal kind of guidelines in this process. I personally have found that studying for two exams isn't too bad. I think the course is kind of pushing it. So I did have to put one of my other obligations on the back burner. I was volunteering with a law firm. And although it was a really beneficial experience this month, actually this week, as I was saying to Bunmi, I had to kind of come to the lawyer and say, is it okay if I take a break this month? I just have too much on my plate. Just because I am also starting to work part-time. And it is nice to kind of balance your time. Don't spend all of your time studying is my little tip. Balance your time, have free time, have days where you do a little bit less, but you still are doing something. As long as you're learning a bit every day, my personal motto, you're doing good. Don't overexert yourself. Don't overextend yourself. Everybody kind of knows their limits and how they study. And again, similar to AETIO, there is an option for these courses for these exams to do courses. But as I was saying, similar to her, I feel like that's not really my preferred style of learning. I'm finding that the self-study process really is not too bad. Like I said, it's kind of just like doing a big final exam for a law course. The only difference is you're kind of studying the material instead of someone teaching it to you. You're taking that material, you're reading it, you're understanding it, you're doing practice exams. You're going to notice these trends of you need to do practice questions. That's the way that I think law is best understood. Repetition of practice, and even with your assignments, like repeating and going over any errors or corrections that you got, because next time you have to write a memo, if you do an assignment and you get corrections on it, next time you have to do that either in school or in real life, you're going to be able to apply because you've been repeating how to do it, what to do. I was going to say something about, sorry, I lost my next point, but I think that sums it up. The exams are not too bad. Like I said, you're going to have to write a handful of them, but it is really doable. You finished law school at this point. So these exams are almost kind of similar to your your law school exams. They're very similar in the sense that you're also using the IRAC formula to answer all of them. So it's really just a question of dedicating the time and applying yourself to be able to get this part of the process out of the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Opeyemi. That was very robust.
Okay, I hope so.
Now I'm loving that word today. So yes, so from my understanding, from what both of you have just explained, for the Canadian legal system, educational system, of course, you have the bar exams, which comprises of the bar and barrister and solicitor exams, and then you have articling, right? And for the UK system, there's another layer, and that is the NCA, right? And the NCA you would have to complete before you do your barrister and solicitor's exams and before you go ahead to article. So that's just the difference. And we have a question here. Thank you, Benita, so much. Benita said, very informative. AETIO and Opeyemi, thank you for the tips. And then Benita did ask Opeyemi, and I think Opeyemi had already answered, but I would still read the question. It says, how long does it take to do the 5 exams than the additional 2?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it depends how many you take. I do want to give general advice. I think doing anywhere between 1 and 2 exams a month is a kind of sweet spot. It allows you to be able, for example, to work if you need to do other things if you want to volunteer. 1 to 2 exams gives you more free time, I'd say. And if you do 1 to 2, it's going to take anywhere from 5 to 7 months, just because I'm doing 2 a month, but because it's 7 and it's an odd number, I am going to take it from last month, September, this month, October, November. There's no exams in December, January, February. So it's almost kind of like 5 months, but the whole process will take me 6 months, just because I'm doing 1 and then 2 exams every month after. So I'd say if you're someone who's getting ready to get into this position of taking the NCAs, block out the next at least 6 months, half a year. Think to yourself, for this 6 months minimum, I am going to focus on these exams, and they're going to kind of be my core. They're going to take up the most of my time. So if you're kind of trying to plan your life around the NCAs, and you are lucky enough to not have to, say, work full time, and you're able to do a couple of exams a month, I'd say give yourself 6 months. Don't feel like you need to rush the process unless, you have personal needs and you really need to. If you're in a position to take your time with these, I would say take your time, take the 6 months, do the exams at your own pace.
Thank you so much, Opayemi. And just to add a few tips to that as well, as an adult student, once an adult student, I would say know your capacity. It's very important, because while I was writing, I had some people write 5 exams at once, and they kind of followed that trend and they failed all the exams. So if you know that you can write 1, please go ahead. If you can do 2, go ahead. If you're able to do 3 at once, go for it. It's your capacity that will determine how many exams you can write at a go. They do not have a minimum or a maximum. If you're able to do the 7 at once, good for you. But please know your capacity, because what it does is that when you follow other people's style or pattern, and then you begin to have that anxiety, and you feel a little bit afraid to try the exams again. So know your capacity. There's no minimum, there's no maximum. But I know that while I did my NCA, you had a number of years you're expected to have finished writing the exams.
I believe it's 5.
It's 5.
Yeah.
So normally they'll give you 5 years and say, we have assessed you and you're writing the 7 courses, and you have maximum of 5 years to complete. If you do not complete at 5 years, then it's another process that you would have to go through. So just to quickly put that out there. And I have a question. You guys have talked about NCAs. You've talked about writing the barrister and solicitors. You've talked about practice questions. The question is, these exams, are they self-studied exams, or you have classes that you have to attend? And when I say classes, I mean compulsory classes, or you have to self-study. Entire.
So the bar exam does not have required courses. It is self-study. There are people who choose to do, like, I know there are courses out there that are completely optional, and there are people who choose to do that. And everybody is different. Some people, they needed to study in a group of 10 people. I am not like that. I get distracted. I need to study by myself, but I liked doing practice exams with other people. So to directly answer your question, no required courses. It's all self-study, but you can sort of choose your own path. If you want to enroll in a course, you can feel free to do so, but know how best you study.
Thank you. And Opayemi, the NCA is a self-study, or you have to attend a course?
Yes, so almost parallel answer. You have the option to take courses. There's several institutions that offer NCA study courses. but it is by no means compulsory. The NTA website, anyone watching, if you look at it, they'll actually tell you you don't have to use any of these resources. You can study for the NTAs by just getting all the textbooks and the required readings and going through them yourself. You have the option then to also buy notes that are made from those readings by someone else. That actually is the route that I'm taking. But again, buying those notes or buying and attending those classes are neither compulsory. You have complete control on how you kind of complete these NTA exams. I myself know myself, and I know that the course route isn't particularly for me. I prefer to have the option to just study on my own pace and study on my own time. And then I chose to purchase notes for these exams, but I also am using in conjunction the assigned readings. So I'm finding that for me, I just like to have a broad overview of the information that I need to learn. So using all of the notes available to me is my best way of studying self-study. So you do not have to buy any of the notes or the courses. You can completely self-study for the NCAs.
Thank you. I just needed to clarify. I needed us to clarify that the Law Society itself or whatever body is administering these exams, they do not require you to take any course. They would give you options of books that you could read. For the bar exams, you pay for your exams, you get a whole bundle of study materials, and that's it. And you go home and do whatever you want to do with it, right? But some people would go on Facebook and other places and get extra materials and get study groups and pay for courses and attend classes, and that is totally up to you. So thank you so much, guys. So our next question. Now we've talked about a lot about the hands-on experience as students, right? All the processes we need to go through, the steps and all that. Now I want us to talk about the mental, physical, social aspect of it. How is it generally, when you think about it now, both of you have completed law school? How was the experience for you?
Law school often brings intense stress.
So I will start by saying, as with all things that are rewarding, law school is not a walk in the park, but there are people and there are things and there are strategies that definitely make it easier. So I guess I'll start maybe on the social side. So going into law school, I did my undergrad at McGill. I have four very close friends. I'm not an extrovert. I have friends that I can count on one hand. So when I was going to law school, I treated it like I'm just going here to learn. If I happen to make a friend, that's great. If I don't, that's also okay. And you'll find that, especially law school in Canada, it's very much like high school in the very first year. All of you are together 24/7 from 9 to 5. You have a locker again. You're in the same classes. You're in the same section. And law is a very small profession where your reputation matters a lot. So I had that in the back of my mind, knowing that, like, and also I'm Nigerian, so my parents also, you didn't come here to play. So I had that in the back of my mind where I was like, if I make friends, cool. But at the end of the day, my goal here is to just get this degree. I did actually happen to make friends, and I did that through a lot of the clubs and extracurriculars I joined. So I was an executive member of the Black Law Students Association. So I was able to connect with people who look like me and share the same cultural background and experiences. And that actually gave me a lot of comfort in a predominantly white space. I was also an editor in the Osgoode Hall Law Journal. So I made a lot of friends who have similar interests. I already talked about how I participated in the Osgoode Society. And I did a lot of mooting, which is like mock trial. Mooting is more appellate advocacy. So I actually connected with like-minded people. And now that I'm going into practice, especially private practice, and I'm thinking about, this is way far off, but eventually I'm going to need to have my own book of business. I'm going to need to bring in clients. The relationships that you make in law school are actually very important. So that might be contrary to the Nigerian mentality of like, just put your head down. It was actually a good idea to like make friends, network, obviously in a very mindful and respectful way. Then I guess physically, like, and mentally, like, it's draining. Like, there's no way around it. It's hard. Law school is difficult. However, you have support systems and you have to keep in mind your why. Like, I knew that I really loved advocacy from a very young age. I loved the way that the law impacts people at such a tangible level. And especially doing my legal clinic at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, I realized that when people would call in and say, oh, I'm experiencing this, my disability benefits were cut off, or I have an accommodation and it's not being granted in the workplace, the fact that you have the expertise to help people at their moment of need was so meaningful to me. And even in the commercial context, when we have businesses that have legal needs and that, you know, are very important to them, the fact that we're able to support them was always very motivating. So keeping that in mind during the tough moments was very helpful. And there's a lot of like mentorship programs in law school. For example, BALSA has one where they'll connect you with an upper year student. So I had several mentors where I would just be like, this is what's going on. How should I navigate this? And I try to replicate that for other people as well. So there's no way around it. Like, it's hard, but you have strategies. I know for me, like, I treated it like a 9 to 7. Every single day I was in the library. My dad would drop me off on his way to work. I would get there at 9 o'clock. I would open with them and then I would close with them. And then I tried to take every Saturday off and do no work because I was in the library all week. So there's like also an element of like discipline with law school. Like, you cannot cram a law school exam. You have to be very self-motivated. And, you know, for some people that comes really naturally. And for others, you have to like search yourself to find it. So just like think about what works for you and talk to people so that you don't feel so isolated as you're going through the journey.
Thank you so much, Etayo. Opayemi, do you have anything to add to
Yeah,
this?
I feel like that was an amazing answer. I think what really stuck out to me was the 9 to 7, just because that's something that unfortunately I only realized works well for me. I realized that, I believe, in my 3rd year of undergrad. So I actually adopted, it wasn't 9 to 7, but I wish, but I adopted a similar strategy in my 3rd and 4th years of undergrad. So I would go to the library every day before my classes. I would review the readings that I had already done, and I would go to my classes feeling so much more self-assured. I was so much more confident in speaking in my tutorials because, like I said, I was doing political science, so it was very communicative. It was very collaborative degree. And if you know, or if you want to just try, if you're an undergrad listening to this, just try it. Next year or this year, just try really dedicating a lot of time to putting in effort to whatever you are studying. And I'd say the same if you're in law school. I did a similar thing in law school because I kind of cultivated that routine in undergrad, late in undergrad, but still. If you put in the effort and the time, it won't be as hard. So, like Etayo said, it is hard. There's no way around it. I wish I had something easy to compare it to. It's like learning how to operate heavy machinery. This is a peculiar analogy, but stay with me. You aren't going to understand how to do it. There's a lot of nuances, I presume. I don't know. I'm not a forklift operator, but when you practice and when you put in the time to realize the little nitty-gritty new things that you have to learn about how to do it, it becomes easier. So after, for example, your first year, you're going to go to your first year courses, you're going to get 50 million pages of reading and you're going to feel very overwhelmed. But after you develop a strategy, like Etayo says, whether that means going at 9, staying in between your classes at the library, putting in the work to get the readings done, however you have to, it gets easier. Then your second course that you do, it's easier for you, etc., etc., etc. So, like I said, I think that answer was perfect. I would just add really quick about my personal experience. I think on the social side, I do think that British and Canadian, since I went to both, universities are a bit different culturally, socially, etc. In my undergrad, I made most of my friends through my residence. I made a lot of friends through clubs. I made a lot of friends through my courses. The difference in my law school journey was I made a lot of my friends actually from my extracurriculars. I would say that I'm a pretty outgoing person. I can be introverted, but I really push myself because it comes more naturally for me to be introverted to be outgoing. And I actually made the majority of my friends from extracurriculars that I did when I was in law school. When I was in law school, I was on the women's volleyball team for my university. And I feel like my ride or die besties are from being on that team because if you have a shared goal that you're working towards with people, it doesn't have to be an extracurricular, it can be your classes as well. That is some of the best and easiest way to foster a really deep bond and connection with people, truly. And like I said, it does not have to be extracurriculars. If sports or clubs isn't really your thing, you can bond and find those connections in your classes, in your cohorts, in your section. I think making friends in law school, because you're all so determined to get this goal that is very lengthy and I will say difficult to achieve, you kind of have a shared passion and you can foster that into a relationship. You just have to put yourself out there. You just have to see who connects with you and be your authentic self, because that's when the people that are meant for you will gravitate towards you. I also made friends from my classes because through, for example, study groups and through particularly projects, I found that most of my friends from my 2-year or law degree were from my tutorials, or they were from a group project that I did in my second year. There's something about being in a smaller group with people, again, who have a shared passion and goal that makes you realize, oh, we're actually pretty alike in this way, or oh, like we have these things in common and we think the same way. You hear people speak and you see how people act and you're like, I want to surround myself with that person. And again, just to parrot what Eitayo said, it's so important to build a good circle, because in the future, you're going to want to have people who you can discuss things with, who you can collaborate with, who you could possibly be working with. It's such a good idea to put yourself out there, even if you are introverted, because I really do get that. Just put yourself out there and find people who are like you. And in the future, you'll thank yourself for it, because you're making connections, not just in your professional life, but in your personal life, to have people to help you through the tough parts of law school, which is kind of everything. So I think the social side was amazing. I loved it. I'm currently always kind of thinking about when I'm going back to England, just because I miss it so much. Or I miss my friends so much, I mean. But I think on that note, the mental side, it kind of goes hand in hand with those connections you make. Of course, there's nothing wrong with you if you're not like, you don't have 50 million friends. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But I would say if you can at least find a couple people who you relate with, so that you can also kind of hold each other up and get each other through these tough times that happen no matter what when you're in law school, because the sheer amount of work you're doing is a lot. So it's better to kind of share the burden of the work that you're going to have to do with other people. It's definitely helpful. But if honestly, another really important piece of advice that I think Eitayo also touched on is use the resources that your law school has for you. Again, I don't want to make it seem like if you don't have a lot of friends, then it's a problem. As long as you know that there are resources available to you, either through friends or people in your courses or through your law school, you will be fine. Just use the resources available to you, lean on the people around you, and also don't neglect your profs. Your profs are really a really great group of people who want to see you succeed. So as much as you should like lean on your friends and lean on the resources, also lean on your profs. Talk to your profs. If you're really struggling with an assignment or you're really struggling with a reading, talk to them about it. I went to office hours a few times and would like gripe about a reading or a problem question that we had in a tutorial with a prof, because I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, this question doesn't make any sense. When I entered in the tutorial and you cold called me and I was so confident in my answer and I got it wrong, I didn't understand. And then the prof kind of, you bounce back with them. So I think use all the resources at your disposal and trust me, you will be fine. Law school is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's such a great experience. Just use your resources.
Thank you so much, Opeyemi. That was robust. See, I'm using the word at every opportunity that I have. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here. We have a question from Muriri, so I'm going to tie that to the next question that I have. I know we said we're going to spend an hour, and we're over an hour to show you that we're actually having fun, right? So Maria have asked, how do you navigate getting a job after law school? And like I said, I'm going to tie it to the next question we have that we were supposed to actually deal with. And that is, Tayo, this question I want you to address because I've heard you talk a lot about, while you were in 100 and 200 level, you getting to get a summer job, having a job already now that you're articling, you're ready articling, you got an article. So how were you able to get access to all the jobs, the summer job, the articling, the job that you have now waiting for you? How were you able to get this?
Yeah. So as a general theme, one thing that I want more people in our community to know, like, I think sometimes we have this mentality of like, first you finish school and then you start looking for a job. But in any field, like even my sister is in business, she started doing internships since her first year, and it's that internship that lined up to her post-grad jobs. So your summers in between schools are very, very important. And to the best that you can, you should be using that in whatever field you are to do relevant work related to your field so that when you graduate, you already have stuff to put in your CV. You don't start looking after you graduate. And with law, especially in JD, it's a lockstep. As soon as you're in the process, there are people who they summered at my firm in their first year summer, and they're now senior partners. They've never left the firm. So once you're in, they just keep dragging you along. So you don't have to think about applying every year and what are you going to do next. It's up to you for when you want to exit the firm. So that's just like thematic. Now, how did I do this? In the JD context, the number one thing, unfortunately, is your grades. Your grades are very important, extremely important. That's not to say that you cannot do this without stellar grades. But especially if you want to get hired in your first year, which is a slightly more competitive process than your second year, the first thing they look at is your grades. It's not them. If you for whatever reason are not able to, that's also fine. There are a lot of people who do other things in their first year summer. They might be a research assistant. They might volunteer with a legal clinic. They might do a non-law related, for example, regulatory compliance. There's a lot of like investigative work that banks and different financial institutions are always looking for internships for. So if you're a student, you should definitely have a LinkedIn account and definitely have job alerts. They post all the time, like you can set up an alert for intern, legal intern, compliance analyst, regulatory analyst, governmental affairs, governmental relations. Like all of those internships can lead to a return offer after you graduate. So I obviously chose to go through the formal big law recruit. Very different if you're, and I want to make that clear, big law or commercial law or private practice is not the only thing. There's government lawyers, there's criminal lawyers, family lawyers, and they have a different route that I don't want to speak to because I don't want to get outside of my scope. But if you're interested in private practice, which includes litigation and the solicitor side, they have a formal and a very structured recruit regulated by the LSO. So there's a day where you have to submit your application. There's a day where literally at 8 a.m., there's a specific time. Everybody has to call you to decide whether or not you get an interview. You do the in-firm interview. And once you're hired in your first year, you come back as a second year and then articling and so on and so forth. They look at your grades. They also look at you like, unfortunately, the grades are a threshold. It's so, we talk about these things so cavalierly, but it's hard to get good grades in law school. And then on top of that, once you have the good grades, you're just in the door.
Yeah,
exactly. It's just the threshold. It's the bare minimum, for lack of a better word. Then once you're in the door, they expect you, on top of spending all this time getting good grades, to have a great profile about you. So for me, I really focused on how I have this love and interest in advocacy, and that connected that to my law school extracurriculars. So I talked about all the moots that I did and the being an editor for a law journal, and being an executive in the Black Law Students Association, to craft my cover letter into a story and connected that to why I wanted to work at that specific firm. I did a ton of research about the firms that I applied to, and I incorporated that into my cover letter to say, like, you guys argued this case at the Supreme Court, and this is one of the cases I mooted, and I want to work here because I know that you guys have a fantastic advocacy group, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's what you need. It's your grades, cover letter, and resume. And then once you're in one of these big law firms or private practice, you literally just You go year by year by year with them until you decide to leave the firm.
Thank you so much, Itayo. And just to also add, it's you said it. Make sure you have a LinkedIn profile. Make sure you network. Make sure you get involved. At LSI, we always say to the youth, get involved. Get involved within your school community, get involved within your local community, because you don't know who you will meet, right? That would say, oh, hi, Bumi, I have something that I think would fit your profile, right? And if you're sitting at home, there's no way that opportunity will come to you. If you're in school and you're not joining clubs and you're not giving back and you're not, just like Okpeyemi said, we do understand that some people are introverted, but you just have to sometimes leave that comfort zone, get involved. Thank you so much for that. So I hope that answered the question, Moriwe. You have to begin to apply as early as possible, as early as you can. Make sure that you get involved so you have something to put on your resume, right? And always kind of show up. We have a couple of questions here. Okay, I'll go with Benita. Is it faster to take the UK route for law school, considering you still have to take more exams to be qualified in Canada? I understand it takes 2 years, while it's 3 years in Canada. Okpeyemi.
So I would answer that as not really. And the reason I use that wording is because essentially you're going to be on a very similar timeline as your Canadian associates who are doing law school in Canada. The reason I said that is because you are going to do those 2 years, but then, like I said, you have to do the the NCAs. And although that I gave that timeline of roughly 6 months, the remaining 6 months of that third year of completing your law school qualifications, you are going to be doing other things. So you're waiting on your CQ. It also kind of depends when that 6-7 months could end based on when you graduate, when you finish your application for the NCAs. So although it's 6 months, try and remember that, and that's the minimum, remember, but try and remember that that 6 months doesn't run from September to February every single time. It's going to be a bit of time in between. There could be a delay. You could start in November. You could start in January. So even though the rough estimate I'd give is 6 months, it's not like the 6 months are over, you're ready for the next step. Like I mentioned earlier, I have to wait a year to do my articling, which is kind of the third or fourth final step in being able to work as a lawyer in Canada. And although I'm going to be preparing for the bar in between waiting, I still have to wait. So it's almost like, because you would be studying in the country, that's always going to be your faster route. If you're studying in the country that you want to practice in, that's the fastest route. For me, I haven't mentioned this yet, but there is a big part of me that also went to the UK because I had an interest in practicing in the UK, and I still do. But I know that the best route for me is first qualifying in Canada and then going to the UK if I please. And the reason for that is it's faster for me. It would have been faster for me, and it is, to practice in the UK since I went to school there. So bottom line is, no matter what, the fastest route will be studying in the country that you want to practice in, or that you want to study law in, practice law in. But that's not to say that the UK route is 50 times longer. It's just a bit unorthodox when compared to the Canadian route. It's not as kind of systematic because they have a lot more specific things that they're going to be doing that only happen in Canada. For example, an on-campus interview from a firm in your first year of law school, that's only going to happen in Canada. You can still get a 1L or a 2L position as someone who graduated from a UK law school, but the priority and kind of the majority of people that are going to be getting those positions are in Canada. So it's not necessarily faster. It's on par, I'd say. You're going to be in a similar timeline as your counterparts who studied here. But it's also not terribly longer. I'd say they both are pretty lengthy. It's kind of just based on your personal preferences and what you want to do in the future and where you want to practice in the future. That's what I would say should guide your kind of understanding and choice on where to study.
Thank you so much, Opeyemi. And just to then add that the NCA, like we have said, the NCA is the only difference that is between studying in the UK and studying in Canada. That's the added, step that you would go through. And the NCA itself, like we all have said today, is self-paced, right? So it depends on the individual. Now, I've learned that some people would finish high school and applied to the UK directly for law school without having to have any formal or prerequisite degree from a Canadian university, right? So Opeyemi did go to Western, but if she didn't need to go to Western, if she didn't want to go to Western, she could have finished high school and applied to law school in the UK and gotten into law school in the UK if she meets all the basic requirement, right? A grade and all that, and application is good. She can do that as well. So like she said, just to also add that sometimes it's a par. And now based on that question, I would just a one line kind of answer, because I know it would kind of depend on the average. Etayo, how long would it take to complete the law process if you studied here in Canada on the average?
Are we including undergrad or just the law school?
On undergrad, after high school.
Okay, so 4-year undergrad plus 3-year law school, 7 years.
7 years, okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's on the average, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Opeyemi, how long would it take if you had gone to study in the UK, like on the average?
So if you do your undergrad here, you brought up a really good point. I neglected that. You can go straight to the UK to study law after high school. That's by far the fastest route. You could either then, when you graduate your 3-year law degree after high school, you could do a 1 or 2 year master's program to complete your NCA requirements. I know someone who did that actually, and she's done before me, and she's younger than me. Or you could do the NCAs in 6 or 7 months, however long it takes, and then you'd be done. So that is a faster route. But if you do what I did, which is do your undergrad in Canada 4 years, and then because they recognize that you already did an undergrad, instead of doing 3 years of law school in the UK, you only have to do 2 through graduate entry. So that's going to be 6 years. But then again, remember, estimate that all of your NCAs, all of your getting your CQ, just tack on another year. So in total, it is really kind of 7. But if you're talking strictly schooling, if you want to do undergrad in Canada and then go to the UK, it's going to be 6 years. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, so Benita, I think we've answered the question. So Canada on average 7, UK, depending on the route that you go through, you could get 6, you could get 5, you could get 7. So it depends on the route that you go through. And Michelle's question, how fast is it? Oh, sorry, how easy is it to transfer qualifications between 2 countries? I think we've already talked about that in answering other questions. So thank you so much, guys. I know that we are like 20 minutes above, a scheduled time. It shows how interesting and how engaging and how interactive the session has been. I want to use this opportunity to say a very big thank you to both of you for sharing your time with us today. It means a lot to us. We're grateful and we're thankful. And we would call upon you again if we need to. And I'm sure that you'll be willing to come on board with us. And now some people have asked if I have questions for Etayo or Opeyemi. How can I reach them? I'm looking for mentors. I'm still in the university. Please follow them on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Follow
Yes.
them on LinkedIn, send a private message to them on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll respond to you and say, I joined your session on LSI. That gives you an extra code, right? So that gives you an extra code. Thank you so much, everyone that have joined us today. For those that asked questions, we are very grateful. And just before we eventually say bye to everyone, any last word from both of you?
No, just good luck with the process. And thank you so much to you, Auntie, for organizing this. I'm sure this is such a good resource for our community, and everyone appreciates you putting these programs on constantly. So thank you for having me, and I'd be glad to speak with anyone who has questions.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I feel the exact same way. I feel so honored to be asked to come here. Talking about my experience has been so fun today. Like you said, I didn't even notice we went 20 minutes over. I think my best piece of advice is put in the work. There's this quote that as I'm taking my NCAs, I keep thinking about. It's you are either gonna get comfortable with the pain of working towards what you want, or the pain of staying where you are and not achieving what could be your biggest dream. So put in the work, put in the dedication, put in the time. You're gonna be better off for it. You're gonna see things and learn things you never even knew you could. And honestly, anybody that's listening, you're already putting in some of that work because you're trying to get more informed on what you want to achieve in your life. So you guys are in a great position. Keep putting in the work, keep showing up for yourselves, and you're going to be more than fine.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And for those that would watch later, thank you. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Everyone, bye.